Hello everybody. I know that there's still some beer bottles being collected up, but I think we're ready to go with the last talk of the evening. I just let the last couple of you grab your seats. Thank you. So my name is Stephen. Thank you for having me here at the Agile Roundabouts today. I come from a company called Kobalt Music Publishing. Now, we're not that well known. We're a music and tech company. What we do is we deal with publishing rights. That means collecting royalties. We deal with Spotify and YouTube Music and Apple Music. We've also got a record label. We deal with things like putting your music into commercials and collecting the licenses of radio stations. The idea is that a traditional company like Sony is quite unwieldy, pays you slowly, pays you after a long time. We'll pay you very quickly, and we'll even tell you how we're calculating it. We're quite, I think we're the biggest independent publisher in the UK at the moment. We are working Cannon Street, and I'll get the plug in now. We've got a wonderful, wonderful roof garden right on the top of Cannon Street, which is beautiful at this time. We are hiring for product managers and tech people, and Jamie, who's sitting over there, and all the guys from TRG who are hosting this. If you are interested in finding out any more about the company, please have a word with them. I'll actually get into talking about me and about DevOps now. So, I've got a development background. I'm a techie, and I spent over 10 years working in financial software, Java developer, a team leader, development manager. And a couple of years ago, I went to a conference and I was a bit late to the game, finding out about DevOps, and I thought, this changes my life. It changes my life because this is solving all the problems as a developer that have plagued me for so long. And I know that I want to bring this in. But for a developer, that's one thing. What I need to do is I need to convince the business that I've got to bring them along on this journey with me. So I know that we've got a diverse audience here, and some of you will have dealt with DevOps before, some of you won't have. So I'm hoping you fall into one of these categories. And don't worry, we will talk about DevOps and what it is first of all. So I think if you fall into one of these categories, you're going to be okay with this talk. If you're technical, and you know what DevOps is, and what you want to do is find out how to convince the business to adopt some of these practices, then I hope that some of the 4 tips I've got are going to be useful for you. If you're from Agile and product, and again, you might or might not know about DevOps, you may have been on a similar journey, bringing in Agile and trying to get some cultural change through your organisation, changing the way people do things, and hopefully you'll recognise some of the ways that you need to interact with people to make change happen, but there's some specifics about DevOps that you need to know. And thirdly, if you don't know what DevOps is, now hopefully this talk is going to be for you. We've only got a little bit of one slide on what DevOps actually is, and that's really says we don't know quite yet what it is, but the whole point is to come up with a case that business could understand about why we want to do this. And that means that if you don't know what it is, hopefully by the end you have, from the perspective of somebody who's having it pitched to you, you'll have some sort of understanding of what DevOps is. If you don't, then really the pitch has failed. So, the many definitions of DevOps. Now, the first thing is talking about collaboration, affinity, tools, and scaling. This one is taken from Effective DevOps. It's a book, which is quite a respected book on the subject. But first of all, I don't think if you don't know what DevOps is, that doesn't give you the greatest idea of what it's about. And secondly, when you're selling things to the business, talking about collaboration, all our teams working together, affinity, we're working in the same direction, they sound good, but they're not going to get you the buy-in or the budget to bring DevOps along. Partnering between IT and operations. Now this is probably the other key concepts of DevOps. What it should be is that your teams who are doing development work hand in hand with the teams who are running the software, probably become the same teams, they've at least got the same concerns. And again, that's a really clear definition of DevOps, but if you don't quite know what DevOps is, you need some more detail, and that's not going to get you the budget. So we have to start digging down. What does this mean? Now, a lot of this starts talking about practices. There's continuous integration and continuous deployment. Now, those of you who know Agile, I hope, are familiar with these processes, committing your code all the time, but also deploying out to production all the time. Is automation and monitoring part of DevOps? It is. But it's something that gets us close to those first 2 examples. What we want to do is automate a lot of stuff. We want to be able to monitor it. And the cloud and infrastructure as code, well, putting all your software in the cloud and defining a lot of your configuration of infrastructure, these become practices that are a key part. But does your business really care whether you're keeping your infrastructure as code? But at least here you can see some concrete things that we're doing. And I think the final way we'll look at defining it is build and deliver software faster and to a higher quality. Now, I think that all of you who've come on some sort of agile journey know that's really what you're trying to achieve by agile software development, capture those requirements, changing things along the way, being faster, and creating things to a higher quality. But we're taking it from a different route. Rather than the process of looking at requirements here, we're looking at how we can work together to deliver that software and run that software well in production. So we've got a definition, well, 3 different definitions: the book definitions, the technology practice definitions, and what I think the aim definition. But what we really want to come up here is we want to come up with something that we can take to business that will get us the budgets, that will get us the buy-in. And there are 4 points I'm going to come along with. 3 of them I did actually use in my argument, and there's one that I wish I'd used if I'd known how to about at the time. Now, the one thing you've also got to be aware of is who you're pitching to. Now, this is Willard. He's a mad Swedish person who really is my CEO. But I know that even him, he's into disrupting his industry, he's going to be convinced about why we've got to be able to spend the time and the effort to bring DevOps in. And you might have a CEO who's one of these people here. Either they are crazy when you start talking about agile, and you need to be able to convince them. It might not be your CEO, it might be your manager, or even worse, you've got someone like the guy from the office who, when you say you want to do agile, they say, well, we do stand-ups, obviously we're agile. I think probably some of you are familiar with this. And the same thing, they might say, well, we've got a Jenkins build server, therefore we're doing DevOps. You're going to have to get buy-in from all sorts of people, and so you're going to have to tailor your case to what these people actually want. Was the guy who came from investment banking, I don't know if he's still here. Yeah, hi. So I've spent time working in investment banking, and I appreciate what you were saying about having to, if you say to people in investment banking, it's very, very difficult to change. And in some cases, it's not going to be possible. But in some cases, using arguments like this, especially when we start talking about the bottom line, are the things that you're going to have to do to be able to do what you want to do, which is bring in a collaboration culture. So if you say in investment bank, I want a collaboration culture, I appreciate that you will be laughed at. If you say, I want to save you some money, then that's where you're going to get listened to, I think. So this is how I started off. I started off by describing our current situation. And the concept of a build pipeline is something that is very important in DevOps. The idea is it's everything that happens to your code from committing it all the way through to deploying it and running it, including running it. And we've got some tools around there. We say, well, we've got a continuous build server. We must be working, have continuous integration. We've got Slack. Now, does anyone here use Slack? So you know that collaboration is very important, except this afternoon when it went down for about 3 hours. I initially thought at work, oh dear, no one's going to get anything done. And then I realised actually people are going to get lots more done now. Slack isn't available for 3 hours. I don't know which way it went, but we had Slack, we had Bamboo, but really, we talk about, is this an automated process? We say, well, we've got someone who's actually got to run this build. This is the build captain's hat at our company. If you're in charge of the release for that week, or before we automate it, you had to wear this hat. So it's not an automated process. You've got someone involved. Then you've got the QA manager. Well, he's doing some smoke tests. QA should be focusing their time on, testing the new features, not rerunning manual regression tests. There's me. I've got to give you permission to merge into master or something like that. We've got another build captain because the first one was off sick. We've got the developer who wants to be able to put something in just before you go to production. And then we've got someone who wants to restart your Tomcat. We've got someone who wants to change your config file. We've got all these different people, and you can see we haven't really got a manual process. We've got all these people, and what these people are doing is they are taking time. They are causing friction in releasing this software as fast as we can. So what we're doing here is setting the scene to say what the problem is, what we're trying to solve. Because if you don't explain, what's going on at the moment, then how business is meant to know what you're trying to fix. And so the next thing is the first big win, it's to talk about features. So if we think about software developers versus robots, software developers, we're smart, we can be expensive, but what we should be doing is developing the things that you've decided on your backlogs are really important. We shouldn't be doing things like trying to find out why we've run out of disk space on one of our VMs. We shouldn't be manually putting a config file or trying to build stuff and putting it out servers. Those things we can automate. Robots are good at doing repeatable, automated tasks. Developers are good at doing features. So once we've explained the problem in the first slide to our business, we can say, well, by automating things, we can start delivering you more features. And at that point, people start seeing, oh, there's a business benefit. I can see that if we start doing that, then we're going to get more stuff developed faster. And as developers, we go, excellent, we can use Docker and we can use cool tools and we can have the culture that we want to do. And so you start coming up and bringing in these tools and the culture that surrounds it. But it starts looking like, well, actually we've got some more tools, some are open source, some you've got to pay for. Someone's got to look after all this. So they say, you know, really, am I getting such a benefit from this after all of the features? So you need to bring some more along. And the second one that I suggest you use is metrics. And so these are DevOps, just like there are key metrics in Agile with your velocity, there are key metrics in DevOps. There's a guy called Steve Smith, I've got a link to him at the end, and he's defined a very good way of measuring these metrics. This is the one that I didn't do as well when I was pitching it to my business. But when we talk about mean time to deployment, we can say, well, previously we're deploying every 3 months. If we start deploying every 2 weeks, if we start deploying every week, if we're deploying every day, how much faster are you getting those things through? If the test lifecycle doesn't take a week to build a release candidate, how much quicker is it for you to come in and disrupt your industry, wherever you're working, if you're using digital as a means to either disrupt the market or to get a competitive edge? The ability to get things out faster is something that's going to help you. Mean time to recovery. If something goes wrong, then you want to fix it quickly. If you've got to go through a 12-step change management process, or people have to build things and deploy it, and it takes you hours or days or weeks, you know, if this is a business critical application, you're losing money, you're losing audience. Whereas if you can deploy something out there, you make the fix, it's 20 minutes, it's tested, it's out, boom. That's going to be something that you can really show. And because these are metrics, you've got to be able to measure them. You've got to measure them beforehand, and you've got to be able to estimate what you're doing, what you're going to get to afterwards. Now, bugs found in production. The reason this can be a metric is if you're automating a lot of your tests, you want to be catching things before they get into production. And if you know that you're finding, for every release, you're finding 5 bugs, then you've got something where you can say, we want to be able to reduce this. We don't know yet how much it's going to be, but at least you can start tracking your progress. And there's time saved when you're deploying applications to production. There are lots of smaller metrics you can use, but I think mean time to deployment and mean time to recovery are the real 2 key ones. Okay, this is the, you can tell that I'm used to present techies, because whenever you put an animated GIF, it brings the house down, but obviously not with this audience. And so the third one is the money. And this, I've changed the figures, but this is almost a concrete case of something that happened with us. So when we do our deployments, it's at a time when we've got a quiet time, but there's still 250 European users of the application. And say, as a random figure, I've just clicked like $10 an hour. Now, obviously, people are getting paid quite a lot more than that, but maybe when the application's down, you can do something. You should go on your email, but you really can't do the key work that you're being paid to do, especially if you need our application. And so we say, well, when the deployment's taking an hour longer than they were a year ago, because our application is huge, what's the cost of an hour delay to each one of those users? Well, 2,500. We're talking, you know, 125,000 a year. So the important thing here is you've got to be accurate in these, because when you put numbers in, people can come back and bite you with them. And so you've got to be honest about it. But coming up with more and more of these, people can really see things about the bottom line. Again, with the banking, I know that it's difficult. But if you start talking about downtime versus, you know, if you're losing money on algorithmic trading, and how much does an hour of downtime cost, those are the sorts of arguments that you can make. the other things, making sure you've got the correct capacity in QA and production because you're deploying to the cloud and you've only got tests spun up when you need to have tests going. You've only got the number of servers in production for your application at peak times when it's peak time. The other 90% of the time, you've only got 2 servers running. There will be costs you've got to factor in. That runs back to the fact that you've got to be honest about this because people are going to come back. And the last one, you've talked about all the benefits, but there are lots of cultures where people are worried about making a change because something will come back and it will bite them on the arse. But you can leverage that by saying, well, this is how we're going to mitigate the risk. So we've got the password stored in code. If you have passwords all over the place, then you end up with a security risk. If you're being audited, they might be found in there, and that's a horrible regulatory breach. Somebody could find them, and you find you're being hacked. This I got today from Ticketmaster, so I put it in at the last minute, telling me that everyone from Ticketmaster had been hacked, and you don't want the reputational risk of your company being the next one to have to send an email out. And as part of this automated DevOps process, password management shouldn't involve humans. That's a problem where we're the leaky part of the chain. We can do things wrong. If you can use solutions like HashiCorp Vault or AWS Secrets Manager, and they will help you solve these problems once and for all. And you don't get rid of the risk, but you are mitigating it by actively taking control of it. You want to know things down before your end users. If 4 of your 6 servers fail in production, you want to know then. You don't want to wait till the other 2 go down and you've got your CEO on the phone saying, why can't we sell anything? We want to be able to quickly rectify stuff when things do go wrong. So again, you're getting rid of the risk of your users not being able to access your software. And it does become safer to experiment if you've got the ability to roll things back, if you've got the ability to quickly spin up test environments, then you are trying to enable innovation here. It becomes a little bit safer. You don't have to, you can do things like red-green deployments, where you've got 2 different versions out there and quickly roll them back. And what we're doing is we're enabling we enable you to do things like that. So this is the last slide of content. It just talks about the 4 key arguments I use. We've got features, the metrics, the money, and the risk. I think I mentioned, don't overpromise. You've got to be honest with these people. Getting people involved and trained. So this isn't part of the business buy-in, but you are going to have to get people involved as soon as you get the buy-in here, because you're not going to be able to do this by yourselves. There will be dragons along the way. I could do a whole much longer presentation on all the things that went wrong rather than how to actually get the buy-in. And do what's right for your company. With investment banking, it comes back. Measuring your success, that comes back to the metrics. And the last thing to land on, I don't know if anyone outside tech knows this word, automagically. It's where things automatically and in the way it seems ingenious, inexplicable or magical happens. And what you want to do is get it so that your build process, so that your processes around software development seem like they're automagic. People are checking in code and maybe they'll know there's something going on, but you want it to be absolutely frictionless. And so really, you've got to sit there, smile to yourself, say, we've done it once people don't notice as much, or at least they do need to be in charge of their process, so they will own it. But once they can get rid of all the friction, they just concentrate on software development. Final words, he's the guy about metrics. Someone before mentioned the Phoenix project. It's a very good read if you want to know about DevOps. Again, here's our careers page. If you happen to have slagged off the sun and realise this is on YouTube and somebody finds out about it, then careers. And there's my Twitter handle. Thank you very much.